Doug is the president at Mans. He's also one of our primary commodity lumber buyers. So he's got a lot of insight into where we are with pricing and supply during COVID. I was just going to run through a number of the different components of building a house and touch on each one because there's different challenges and different issues with each one. But like Andrea said, if you do have questions, let us know. We can, take questions in the middle or at the end, whatever works best for you guys. I was going to start with rough lumber, studs and sheet goods. That's, one of the biggest components of, framing a house. When we talk about rough lumber, we usually get a lot of our information from an industry magazine called Random Lengths. So we're going to be, noting some of the information we are going to get is from that industry rag. One of the things that they talk about is the composite price, and I was going to have Doug touch on what the composite price consists of. And recently it's been over $1,000 per thousand. So I was going to have him also say why that's a big deal historically. So Doug, if you could just comment on that.
Sure. So in our industry, you can the random lengths and futures are based off of 2x4 random length Western SPF. So we can buy futures going into all the way into next year if we want, but that's basically where they price every week. This random lengths come off. And a year ago today, it was at $418 a thousand. So the number they give you, it cost about $105 a thousand. So every piece of lumber has so many board foot of lumber in it. A 2x4 has, 2x4 8's 5 1/3, a 2x6 12 is 12 feet. So every piece of wood has so many board feet. So you take the board footage times the price per thousand on that particular day, and there's your price. So so the numbers we see in random length, you add another about $105 for transportation. So from the mill to Detroit, they usually price it to Chicago, and then there's furtherance from Chicago. It's about $105. So that's kind of when you see the price of random length, add $100 to it, and that's your true price. So about a year ago, it was $418, and today it's $1,005. So it's up 25%, in this time period, 150%. OSB at the same time, a year ago, we were at $354 a thousand. There's 32 board feet in a sheet of plywood, a 4x8 sheet. And today it's at $957. And the OSB mills are normally, you buy them in the regional markets that you're located because of transportation. You add another, $35 to $40 a thousand for that. And then people go, well, what's transpired? Why is this? Well, when COVID hit last year and, construction was really limited, shut down in Michigan, limited in other states, the mills were scared. And they said, you know what, let's stop producing. We don't know when we're going to be able to ship lumber again. So they ran their inventory at the mill level down to nothing. So then all of a sudden, the economy opened up, building opened up, and there was just the floodgates opened. And really what happened is not only did you have housing starts kick off, but you had the retail levels of the Home Depots, the Lowe's, the Menards, even our retail, it went up 50%, and they could not get back ahead of producing lumber. Everyone's like, well, were some of the tariffs, did that affect lumber? Our market's totally driven by supply and demand, 100%. When there's a ton of demand, you're going to pay the highest prices. I always tell my builders, they start complaining about the price of lumber, and I say, well, how was your year this year? Best year I ever had. Your bet is huge correlation. If you're a builder and you've just had a great year, you probably paid a lot for lumber because all over the country, they're busy. So we're competing with the Arizonas, the Californias, the Floridas, the Texas. Those are all strong markets. Probably 5 years ago, the mills in the northern region of OSB started shipping product into these other markets because they could get a higher price. Before that, you really didn't see, OSB being traded halfway across the country because freight rates were too much. But with prices where they're at today, it is really the whole country's competing against each other on the same fiber. The other thing we saw probably about 5 years ago is the Canadian government started to take about 10 to 15% of the production of their trees and forestry out from the mills. It doesn't seem like a lot, maybe it's 100 million board feet a year, whatever it may be. But if you do that over the course of 5-10 years, it's been a lot of production taken out of the Canadian. And a lot of our wood that we bought, your 2x10s, your 2x12s, a lot of the Western 2x6 long lengths, if you're using 18s and 20s, those usually come to Western mills. That really has made a dent in it. So you're seeing these Canadian mills come into the southern markets of the US and buying the small little mills. And I think part of the reason we see lumber gone up is these mills that were in Canada that were really professionally ran. This was, they're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. They went into these southern markets and bought these little mom and pop mills that weren't run professionally as a business. It was, kind of the good old boy network. And now they're being run by these Canadian mills and New York Stock Exchange companies. And so you have seen them probably, part of that's part of the increase in too. People say, well, when's this going to come down? I think it comes down when the demand slows. And, we get another $1.9 trillion pumped into our economy, and people keep improving their homes, and remodeling continues to be strong, and interest rates stay under 4%. It's cheap money for a homeowner to go. I don't see this really slowing down to the second half, maybe even the fourth quarter of this year. If you look at Random Lengths, that's kind of what that's projecting. Random Lengths futures in November are probably about $200 cheaper than today's cash market. A lot of times it tells you what the market thinks it's going to go. So it's 20% less today for the November contracts than you could go in the open market and buy cash. OSB kind of feels the same way. That I think they're thinking the end of the third into the fourth quarter, you'll see that come off. But their order files right now are strong for the next 45 to 60 days. And as long as they have a strong order file, they're not going to lower the prices.
So when you talk about $900 per thousand for OSB, that's give or take $30 a sheet.
Yeah, $29 to $30 a sheet.
Cost.
Our cost compared to $10 a sheet a year ago. So it is, that's tripled.
And when you talk about dimensional lumber, say a 2x6 12, I saw was trading for about $1,200. Is that right?
So it was $480 to $13.
So you're talking about $13 for a 2x6 12, which is $1.20 a foot.
Yeah.
Right. $1.15.
Compared to 50, 60 cents a year ago. That's exactly right. So
I'm just kind of summing it up. If you're looking at those two items, you're more than double from where we were a year ago. And you're not seeing that change in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
We talked about this the other day. So I had bid out, one of my customers he builds the same home repeatedly, and it was about $12,750 a year ago. And we just repriced this at 30 grand. So there was a good article in one of the trade regs that came out, and it said prices of lumber and panels in a home has increased the price of the package about 150%. So his 13 grand went up to 30 grand. If you do the math on it, it's 50%. So that's what lumber has increased over the last 12 months for builders. And the other thing you look at is if you look at the Pulte's and the Tolls and Lennars and DR Hortons, their stocks are all-time highs. These guys are making money hand over fist, and they've professionally ran. They're increasing the prices of their homes. And I think that's the number one thing is we can't be afraid to get the value of what you're doing out there. The prices are real. The homeowner adding another 15, 20 grand onto a $400,000 house. Realistically, it's another, $30, $40 a month over a 30-year mortgage. It's really not that much. For them, they're still saving money. Their monthly payment's going to be less than if the rates were up at 5%. So I think that's the perfect storm. You got low mortgage rates. You've got, money is cheap. People have been at home. They've saved a lot of money because we couldn't go to dinner. We couldn't really do anything. We couldn't go to ball games. So I think, over the last year, people, they've come out with those stats. More people have saved more money in the last year than we ever have in the last 20 years of our country. So, their payments are down.
The one thing that we would normally touch on with increase in prices are, the reasons, fires, hurricanes, shipping costs, raw materials, shortages. One thing that we've heard recently is a shortage of resins, which affects OSB. And in fact, recently Huber, who makes Advantech and zip sheathing, which you're starting to see more and more of on the job sites, they went off the market for 2 weeks. When people say they go off the market, what does that really mean?
So there's two things. Off the market, maybe they won't give you a price until it's shipped because the market's going up so much, they won't give you a price. And then the other off the market means we're just not producing. We won't sell anymore. We're oversold. We're overcommitted. And for 2 weeks, we're not taking another order. So that's what just transpired with, a couple of different people. They're just said, you know what, we're shutting down, not production, but we won't take any more orders. If we don't stop taking orders, we'll never catch up. I've never seen this in my 35 years of doing it, but it's real. The resins, we had some of those storms in Louisiana 60, 90 days ago, that because all our oil is down to that basin down there, Louisiana, Texas, and all your resins are petroleum based. Same thing with your phones. So when there's issues down there, it affects, so all the glues that go into OSB, all the glues that go into your I-joists, all the glues that go into the particle board that goes into your interior doors, all that stuff's being produced down there, and then it gets shipped up here to wherever the manufacturer is. When Texas had their issues, these chemical factories froze shut, and so their pipes burst. The stuff they had in production went bad, so they got set back for 2 weeks. So now all of a sudden you had an overtaxed market that we couldn't get enough product anyways. All of a sudden these chemical plants are shut down for 2 weeks, and causes another disruption. So it's real. We're seeing it every day. We can get into the whole Therma-Tru that comes later, but every day it seems like we get another announcement that they just can't keep up with production. So what they're doing, and it's our next topic, we can kind of keep going into a little bit, is your I-joist. They're just raising the price in hopes that it slows it down. And in most markets, the product are sold and people are willing to pay it. They don't have a choice. They've got signed contracts, sold homes, and they're keeping it going. So like I-joists, rim board, things that go into an engineered wood flooring system, it's gone anywhere from 25 to 30% over the last 60 days. And that's all based on OSB because those products are OSB based. The web on an I-joist is OSB based, and then you have your the top and bottom cords that can be something else. So
for some of those products, going to be harder to get now with Huber shutting down for a couple of weeks. So now you no longer have Advantech coming into the market. So now you're looking at what the blue product from GP, right?
Yeah, you've got some other high grade 200 day no sand products. Knock on wood, we had pre-bought enough Huber. I think we'll be okay. But when when they shut you down for 2 weeks, we've got enough inventory. Most lumber yards have 30 to 60 days worth of inventory, but the problem would be this 2 week delay. When does that really affect you? Is it 8 weeks from now? Is it 10 weeks from now? But eventually, if you can't get ahead of it, it catches up and all of a sudden you're out of stock. And we ran into that last year with, decking, both treated and truck. So we can talk about that too. So
the I-joists are affected because of the OSB market, and then, other framing like trusses, machine stress rated or MSR lumber. Are we seeing any big changes in that? Is that really, I've seen an increased bidding trusses.
Yeah, I think trusses, 50% of trusses are material, the other 50 is their engineering. But yeah, the metals have gone up, and obviously lumber is the same thing. It's gone up 150%, and the truss manufacturers, so their prices will go up also. I think the interesting thing, if over the last, every year, we've always had a engineered wood price increase of, 2 to 5%. It's kind of the cost of living. Anderson window has always been 2 to 3 to 4% every year. We just kind of set your watch to it. Commodities, on the other hand, are like gasoline. It's one day your lumber or OSBs at, 350, and then you're at 900. It will come off. The question is like the gains of the I-joists and LVLs and even some of the trims and doors. When this market cools off, will those manufacturers give it back? And if history teaches anything, they're not very forgiving about bringing back their prices after a price increase. Where commodity, it's traded on, it's traded by people, investors that are trying to make money on the trade. They don't even care if it ever. Futures, 70% of the futures are bought by commercial traders, and they're just looking for a little gap to make some money on. 30% goes to people like me that know I have a project coming up. I bought the lumber to protect myself. So it's kind of interesting. That's why commodities fluctuate, because you've got professional traders in there running the price up and down. But lumber will come off eventually. These other products that have seen this price increase, I'm not sure what they give back, if they give any of it back. So to me, that's like the real interesting part of what's going to transpire.
Some products are going on allocation. We heard I-joist going on allocation, rim boards.
That's a good point.
What products should people who have large projects coming up, what should they be thinking about as far as lead times?
So allocation, I think that's a very good point. So basically mills have said, all right, we'll give you 10% over what you purchased from us last year, no more. So allocation, really, they take what you purchased the previous year. They may give you a 10 to 15% more if they feel that they can work that into their production schedule, and that's what a lumberyard will have. Fortunately for us, we're a large enough player. We have strong purchases with our key vendors. We will be able to take care of our existing customers. If we were to land a new account that was a large player, we just couldn't do it. Like in the I-joist world, we wouldn't have enough I-joists to take care of the people that were loyal to us last year and step into a new customer that would purchase a ton of I-joists. Job here, job there, no problem. If you said I'm going to buy 5 house packages a week for the remainder of the year, we'd have to say we're not capable of getting enough product. So, that's probably your biggest. Doors. We'll get into that, but doors are on allocation. I think every part of the house package, from appliances to flooring to the lumber to the dimensional to the trim, interior doors, everything's, we've had to walk away from door projects this year because we just couldn't get enough interior doors. Geldwin was on allocation. So those they're real. I think it's important whenever you're ordering something is find out from your rep, your sales rep, hey, what is the lead time? What's my worst case scenario? And then at least you're able to communicate with your customer worst case scenario, and hopefully we, perform better than that, but we had vinyl windows that went from 6 weeks out to 13 weeks. So it delayed people being able to side homes, and then their siders were off the job, so it was a mess. But they're bringing some of that back in.
Another big product for us at Mans is decks. We do $25 million in decking, and last year, frankly, could have been more if we had more
Right.
material. Last year, we couldn't get treated lumber when we needed it. We couldn't get enough Trex decking when we needed it. Are we going to see similar problems this year?
I think I think most people are ahead of it. Once again, we stopped buying in the month of the end of March and all of April. I think most lumber yards were in the same position. We had a bunch of inventory sitting there, and when was the governor going to open up our state? No one knew. So we kind of stopped ordering. And then, like I said, when we went back online first part of May, the floodgates opened and we couldn't keep up with it. And it's kind of interesting is the big boxes couldn't get product. So we had a lot of the people that would shop at a box start coming to us, and they've stayed with us. I think they realized the shopping experience was better at a lumber yard than it is at a box store. More convenient, easier to get in and out of their places. So for us, we saw about a 40% increase in cash sales last year. And a lot of it was just due to the boxes were out. We did have some, since we are such a large player, we did have allocation, but trucks, they couldn't produce enough. They limited us to about 15 trucks a month last year, and we were going through about 20. So I knew by September I was in trouble. It was no fun watching my inventory shrink and not be able to get more in, but it was happening. Luckily, Trex is one of the companies they've ramped up. They have by July, they'll have 9 more or 8 more lines on. They've built a new factory. So we shouldn't have any issues with that. Treated, I think if you can stay ahead of it, there's certain wides, 2x12, 6x6 are tough to find. But other than that, we're ready for the spring.
Cedar, not just decking, but lumber in general, whether that's pattern stock, double sidings, decking, rough sawn boards, saw some major increases last year.
Yeah,
as
we're
well.
30 to 50% increase. And part of that is due to that we talked about it earlier. The Canadian government's really limited the stumpage or the trees that can be forested out of Canada. And those forests, that's where a lot of the big cedar logs come from, are the British Columbia area. So they limited some of that. There's not as many trees there's not as much fiber for these mills. And really what you're seeing is the fiber they do have are trying to go into clears, more pattern stocks for interior applications. So they'd rather not produce the decking and the 2x4 and the 2x6 that used outside because they can make so much more money on the pattern in the clears. A lot of that goes over to China. The clear cedar and clear Doug fir, they like over in Japan. They love the structure and the look of that material, and they're willing to pay the money. So, what I realized 20 years ago when things got bad is 20 years ago when things got bad, only about 5% of our lumber, of North American lumber, would go overseas. Now it's 15 to 20%. So when times got bad and we went down to, no housing starts anywhere, and Michigan went from 25,000 starts down to 2,000, these mills had to find another market. So they went over to China, and they increased their sales productivity about, from 5% to 20%. So that's a strong market that a lot of our fiber goes to, and especially for Canada. And, they're producing less, sending more to China. So hence we've got less production in North America. And I think at $400, $1,000 last year, I don't think we'll ever get back there. I just, from what is taken away from us, I think the new norm will be a $500 to $600 wood. I don't think it'll be $1,000 wood, but I think the idea of $400 fiber is just, it's like dollar a gallon gasoline. I think, we're never going to see that again either. So that's kind of what I'm thinking on that.
So it's not all doom and gloom. You know, we've seen big jumps in rough lumber, panels, I-joists, but you know, if you're looking for a few positives, you know, windows had their yearly increases that weren't, you know, outside the realm of what they've been, you know, 5 to 7% maybe at the top. Exterior trim and siding, you haven't seen big jumps in AZEK or Boral or Windsor One or James Hardy or anything like that. But I do think that, you know, the awful big part of the cost of a house that has jumped up. What can people expect, you know, on the average cost of a house? I mean, is it bumping it up 5%? Is it bumping up 20%? I mean, how is it really affecting?
I think it's at least 10. I think if it's a $250,000 house, it's up 25 grand. Just in the rough lumber package and trusses and trim and sidings. You know, the other thing you get, and you know, it's the American way, unfortunately, but you know, everyone's raising their prices. So even if a product doesn't need to, they're going to try to bump their price 3 to 5%. So, you know, everyone joins the party and wants to raise their numbers. So that's an issue. That's out there, but you're seeing, so, you know, I would think that someone like a AZEK, which is a PVC petroleum based, they'll try to see if they can get a price increase in the next 3 to 6 months.
Not really affecting housing starts though. I mean, housing starts are up this year, right?
So, you know, we were looking at that. So you've gone from, in 2019, there was about 1.3 million housing starts, and there's 1.6 million now. So you've had 300,000 more starts. So 20% over the last 2 years. And that's why I say the increase in lumber prices, some of it's strictly demand. If these housing starts go down, if interest rates get to 4.5%, 5%, and we don't build as many homes, your price of lumber will drop immediately. Just what transpires. But we're just in a hot market where you got low rates, you got people with lots of money. And, you know, the other thing, if you know, over the last 10 or 15 years, they've talked a lot about the trend in our age population, and that I guess it's the X generation or Y generation, whoever the heck it is. But they're at an age where they've got to move out of mom and dad's basement, and they're going to get married, and they're going to start having kids. So, I mean, if you follow those trends, like the Harvard housing reports, they've predicted this, what was going to transpire with housing. There's going to be a huge need, and we're underbuilt really in the U.S. for housing. And I think that will continue for the next 10 to 15 years, because the trend is you've got this group of 10-year period of kids at home. They've all lived at home. It's been pretty easy on them, but they're going to get married. They're going to start families. And, you know, the American dream is still there. They want to live in a house. They want to move out of the apartments. You know, the other thing I think we've all seen is, you know, it was that big move to the urban settings. Everyone wanted to go to the cities. And as soon as COVID hit, you had some of these other issues, everyone wanted to move out of the cities, and they wanted to move into the country, and they wanted to move back out in the suburban areas. So I think, you know, will the city living become hip again? Probably, but right now it's not very hip. And you're seeing people that were down there move out of it. And, you know, cost of living was expensive down there. So I just think it's, like I said, it's the perfect storm of what's transpired. And until we see a dip in housing starts or a rise in mortgage rates, and I would tell everyone, we don't want to see that. You know, if you're building a lot, and every remodeler we know, Andrew, we were just talking, they're busy for the next year. Those are good problems to have. If you got pre-sold jobs, I mean, we'll get into that, but there's ways that builders are protecting themselves on a rising market. They write it into their contracts. Maybe we can talk about that, but most guys are saying, hey, if lumber goes up more than 10% from the time we sign our contract based on a random length, then we got to increase your contract. If it stays within that 10%, I think most people can cover that. It's probably, you know, not a huge increase. So we're seeing a lot of different things. We're seeing projects stalled. We had 2 big apartment projects one in Northville, one in Pittsfield, that the developers have just said, let's shelve it until these lumber prices come down. I think that's the other thing that'll slow the lumber market down, is these large projects, the multifamily, that they can't pass the cost on to the homeowner. They're shelving it. They're just saying, hey, until this comes down, we can't spend another, $1.5 million into this project. We had a budget of 13 million. We can't bring it to 14 million or 15 million. So I think you're going to see a lot of the big projects just drag their heels until they see this market cool down.
So what I'm seeing is from some of our suppliers is them not holding prices. You see price at time of shipment.
Yeah.
Which is really just a way of saying, we don't know how much it's going to cost you, but we'll get it to you when we can.
So when things are on allocation the way is currently, sometimes it's just more important to have knowing that you're going to get the wood than it is what the price of the wood is. The old adage, you can't sell from an empty shelf. Well, I've got to have carloads of lumber coming to me all the time. A carload, once it loads out west, it's about a 2.5 week lead time. And that's if rails are going the right way and we don't have a big freeze and whatnot. But that's so right now, the cars I have coming in mid-March, I had bought these cars back in January. It's price time of shipment. If you said, hey, Doug, what are you going to pay for those cars? I'd say right now, I couldn't tell you. I've never really had that before, but more important to have the fiber and know that we're getting the wood than it is the price of the wood. So I was talking to a friend of mine in Arizona. It's the first time he bought Russian OSB. The U.S. has never imported sheathing from overseas like OSB, commodity. They just can't get enough OSB in the Phoenix, Tucson markets to keep up with it. So he's wherever he can get it. And, it's the slow boat from China, and that's what this wood's coming from. And and then the other issue we've got are cargo coming in from overseas. These freighters and cargo and containers are delayed in ports, sometimes up to 30 days. So we buy a lot of our moldings from overseas, whether it be Argentina, New Zealand. And, we're told it's going to be here in January. Now, all of a sudden, it's 30, 60 days late. The freighter was late leaving. It's here. It's sitting in port. It can't get unloaded. It's backed up. We're fighting. I was saying to someone the other day, hey, if Ford can't get chips to continue to make their F-150, don't be surprised if Manns is out of something one day. I mean, you've got, one of the smartest, biggest companies in the world can't get chips to keep their production line going. You're going to see outages in our industry. It's just the facts of life right now.
We're going to have 30 minutes, but I wanted to, I guess, to sum up where we are is that prices are moving. They're not consistent. We personally are not holding prices for any amount of time. We're giving you a number today that we would hope we could hold for a short period of time, but our vendors, everything is, the price they give you today is what you will pay today. If you want it tomorrow, it will be a different price, and it's always subject to availability. So we're under this, under those constraints, which, puts our customers under the same constraints. Here's the price that is today. Frankly, we don't know what it's going to be tomorrow or in 2 weeks or in 2 months.
I think that's a good, the message too, when you're speaking to homeowners has got to be, hey, here's our price today. We're in a very volatile market. If this goes up more than, 5 or 10%, I'm going to have to pass on some of the cost to you. So I know that's a lot of guys are writing that into their contracts.
Last year, I think Random Lengths went up about 38 straight weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Which is, I've been around for 25 years. I've never seen anything like that. That kind of, every week, so well, can't go any higher. Can't go any higher. And then it did 38 weeks in a row. But
Gotcha.
Andrew, do you
I
want
have a question in the chat.
to?
There's a question in the chat for you. I'm a structural, excuse me, structural engineer supporting residential construction. The feedback from my clients is some of the typical dimensional lumber species and grades that I spec out are getting harder to find or are not available. What species and grades are you seeing that used to be easy availability but are now limited?
So in the wide, so you're talking about like 2x12, like where you dug, used to be more Doug fir, now it's
Yeah.
hem fir, or even it's a white fir.
So your Doug fir used to be more of a structural use. If you're in engineered wood, so you're having a hard time getting wides in engineered wood, like an LVL 20, they're on allocation. So we'll be able to get it. It's just timing. Once again, we're a large enough player where we have, like an engineered wood, we have 3 to 4 trucks a month that I can put different specifications on it. If I was a smaller yard that didn't have these trucks bought, and you came to me and said, hey, I want a 24-inch wide by 38-foot long LVL, I need a 3-ply to hold up a couple floors, I'd tell you, I can't get it. Luckily for us, we've got enough wood coming in, but it'll take an extra 30 days to get product like that. The other one was there, AJ, the 13,000. So if you took the 12.5 and doubled it to 25, then again, I guess that's about 150% up. And that's what the article in the paper was saying. So I think house packages are up about 150%.
If you're looking for some backup to your claims for your customers, and you know,
Yeah, we can
we
supply.
can certainly help
information.
you with, copies of, articles from the Wall Street Journal or the Lumber and Building Journal, or even Random Lengths.
We
We'd be
get-
happy to help.
Yeah, we actually, that's a great point. We get, every Friday, we get multiple emails that tell us where the market was, where it has gone. And if anyone needs that to show a customer of what's transpired, we're more than happy. Just let us know and we have all that information, and we're doing it a lot currently. These big GCs have had to go back to the investors and show them what's going on. And so we've been in a lot of negotiations and a lot of discussions over the last 6-8 months.
Yeah, lean on us, we'd be happy to help with whatever information we can find for you. Anybody else have anything?
Nothing?
No, it doesn't appear so. It was a
So
good
good of a job we
presentation. You
did,
pretty much
Andreas.
addressed, I know, you addressed pretty much everything before they could ask.
Hopefully they're not all scared saying,
Yeah, they want to
not
get
what
out
we
of
were,
the business.
not what we were hoping, but
Yeah, we wanted good news only. No.
Yeah.
there's not a ton of it out there regarding pricing and availability. Oh, one thing that we should mention
I'll
is,
ask a question if I get a chance.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we do a lot of trim replacement on these houses built in the 90s. So at that point in time, it was that rough sawn prime spruce.
Yeah.
Bought a lot of it from a lumber yard. Can't seem to locate that. What kind of material can we intersperse with if we're not retrimming the whole house?
We stock a rough sawn spruce. And then we used to stock it primed, and we just didn't get enough call for, but because the guys liked it back primed because it would prevent the rotting on the backside. But so right now, what most guys are buying the bare rough sawn spruce, and then they're doing their own priming beforehand before putting it up.
Spraying it or whatever.
Yeah, so we are stocking it. We still have some builders that use that. We love when they use the raw stuff because we know that in 5-6 years, guys like you will be back buying it and putting it back up again.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. But we love it.
Okay,
It keeps us in business.
I'll call for some pricing.
Yeah. Because that's gone up also. Rough sawn
Right.
spruces, boards have tend to really gone up a lot too. Like we have our own mill shop that we cut our own knives and make interior moldings to match some historical moldings and whatnot. And so like 4-quarter and 8-quarter poplar that we'll cut these moldings out of, that's gone up 30%. So boards have really seen a huge increase too. But we like I said, we run a lot of our own custom millwork out of the shop. We have a shop in Troy. So we're seeing those go up also.
Do you have an upgrade? Do you have an upgrade from that that sawn spruce? Do you have an upgrade?
It would either be cedar or you'd go into one of these composites,
Okay,
whether it's a Meritech or a Boral or one of those.
yeah, we gotta match that grain though, so it
I
depends
know.
on
So it's,
how you're replacing it and where you're replacing it.
Windsor One makes a rough sawn product as well.
Right, I think they make that in a couple of widths. yeah,
Windsor one has a
So
1 by
Yeah,
N 5
give-
quarter and.
give Gar a call and he can give you some different options on that.
thank you.
Any other questions on pricing or supply or allocations or some of the headaches you guys are having out there?
I was gonna touch on note we got about Therma-Tru.
Oh, yeah.
Just yesterday.
Right.
We got a note from Lumbermen's, and they're our major supplier of Therma-Tru fiberglass doors. And the fiberglass doors, that's again with the resins, correct?
Yep.
With an issue in production. And they are not only not taking new orders, they're actually canceling orders that they already have because they can't get product. And they're pushing lead times way out, like months.
July, August.
Yes.
They're steel doors, they can do, they have the steel to make their metal doors or steel doors. Their problem is the fiberglass skins. And once again, these resins come out of Texas and these plants went down for 2 weeks. They're damaged, they're not up, back and running, and they just don't know how they're gonna get this up and running again. So those are the headaches you're seeing with that, once again.
You're gonna want to plan ahead when it comes time to order your entry doors, if they're gonna be fiberglass, if they're gonna be pre-finished.
Yeah.
What was gonna be maybe a 4 to 6 week lead time could be a 4 to 6 month lead time. We just don't know. We just got that information yesterday, and the information they gave us was not good. So one other thing to note.
I definitely wouldn't sign any contracts that limited me or penalized me for not getting a project done on time. I don't know, we're seeing guys, the force de majeure or whatever we're seeing guys implement that to get out of some headaches that they have in their contracts. So a lot of different things going on out there that we've never seen.
Out of your control and out of our control.
Right.
And, there's really no necessarily an end in sight. So Curtis, you got a 12 to 14 week lead time on the last time you already ordered? Yeah. That's not surprising.
Guys, I'm available. I work out of the Canton store, but I can give you, if you have any questions or you want me to, I've called people's customers before and talked to them. So if there's everything I could do, certainly let me know, give me a holler, give me an email. I got a lot of gray hairs. I've been doing this a long time, so I can BS my way through it with the best of them.
Do we have anything
Any
else?
other questions? All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Hopefully
Again,
this
if
has
you
been
need something,
helpful.
let me know.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Andrea.
Bye, Andrea.
Yep. Have a great day.
Yep, bye-bye.